Hey guys, just before we continue the video, I just want to say a big thank you. We have now hit 500 subscribers. Um, this is absolutely brilliant news. I could not have done it without you. My, I'm so appreciative of everyone that subscribed and anybody that's commented or supported me anytime along the way. So, not to get too much into it, but thank you very much. It's appreciated and enjoy the video. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's video. This week we're going to be looking at the Dead Nation style game again. In my Discord channel, a user requested a particular feature to be looked at. Now I thought it was pretty cool, so what I've actually done is I've added a bit of a spotlight feature to this game. And now, it may not be 100% exactly what they wanted, which I am going to cover that with them, of just what's going to be slightly different to achieve what they want. But, enough being said, I wanted to show you it. Basically, just if we switch now to Searchlight, up at the top, this prevents you to being able to shoot, because I don't want this to be used whilst firing. I want it to be an option to explore with. Now, when we go to shoot, you'll notice now that the camera pans forward just a little bit, and the light actually becomes a lot more powerful. This becomes like a little searchlight. So, essentially, this gives you the ability. Let's say you're firing, you're progressing through the level. You know, this guy dead. You get this guy dead, and then let's say in Dead Nation, normally you'd get to like a ramp and then you drop into the next level. Let's say you just want to be a little bit nosy and you're like, I think I can see a guy. Oh, I can see a guy there in the next level. There's a bit of red there where I think another guy could be. Or maybe you've got some like darker areas, which obviously we need to do something with the lighting in here. But you could like, let's say you couldn't get in here. You could proper stick your spotlight in. Maybe there was some sort of enemy which sticks to the wall until it's seen, and then you could see them. You could set up enemies that when a spotlight's activated, they're aggravated. And I think that's quite a neat little feature. So I'm just going to talk over how we first adjust the light and then how we get the camera to sort of like pan forward a little bit just to give you a bit more visibility. I've kept the movement quite small because I don't want it to reveal too much in the game, because I think that could spoil it. But I've also made the decision that this takes away the ability to fire as well. So you can't fire and do that at the same time. And again, that's for it to be used more of an exploration tool rather than an exploit. I don't think you should be able to shoot and get extra visibility in the game. I think it's one or the other. But enough being said, let's get into it and let's get this made. Okay, so if you've got your project open and you followed on from the latest video where we've got our weapon switcher and we've got our rifle, our shotgun and our SMG, then you should be able to follow along with this absolutely perfectly. If you haven't, you may need to go back and watch that video, or you might have to fill the gaps in with a few bits and pieces. Well, hopefully that we're not too far away from just a plain template where you could probably follow along. So this first bit is really going to be the only thing that you won't be able to follow along with. So for those who have, if in the previous video you will be aware that in the blueprints folder we've made an enumerator called weapon types. Within here we've got the rifle, the shotgun and the SMG. Essentially I want to add the spotlight or the searchlight as a weapon. So I'm just going to put searchlight in there and press save, and then my enumerator has now got a weapon. We can close that. We're also going to need to open the third person character blueprint. That's the one that we've made all the weapons in, or it's just your character. And also we need to open up the follow camera. So the follow camera, if you followed along with me, I think originally I've left this in the contents folder. But just to neaten things up, what I have gone and done is I've gone and put them in my third person folder. Also, that's along with the beam and the laser. I've just moved them in here because they are character specific, and that's that. So, open up your third person character. And if you zoom in and look at your enumerator, you'll see here that we've now got searchlight, and also with the weapon switcher, we've got searchlight. So just to fix the weapon switching, that's probably the easiest to do to start with. So let's just do that first. I'm just going to grab either a reference to the current weapon type and pick set, or you can select one of the other sets and press Ctrl W, and that will duplicate. If you are in Unreal 5, I believe they've changed duplicate now to Ctrl and D, so you can press that too. So what we've got here is, if we have a rifle currently equipped, we want to change to the shotgun, that's right. And if we've got a shotgun, we want to change to the SMG. If we have an SMG, we want to change back to the rifle. However, because now we've got a searchlight, we want to change the SMG to searchlight, and then change the searchlight to rifle, and then just connect that up. And that's it. That's the weapon switching done. So now if we compile and play, we press F a couple of times, we will get to a searchlight. However, at the moment this doesn't do anything. So with the weapon switching already updated and set up, it's that simple. We can now go ahead and sort out our searchlight. Okay, so as you can see, we've got a searchlight. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to drag this down here, and I'm just going to type in reroute. You'll see we've got an option here for a reroute node, and that just gives you this little widget here, and that just makes this all look nice and tidy. And then we can start working on our light. Okay. Just out of habit, I press compile most of the time when I see a change. That's not necessary, but I'd recommend it. So in the viewport, I'm going to click on Spotlight over on the left, and I'm just going to have a look at what we're going to do. So what I really want to do is, when I have the searchlight enabled, let's just press play and let's have a quick look. When I have the searchlight enabled, I want the focus of the spotlight to become a little bit narrower, but I also want the light to be a bit more, have more length to it, so it's searching, so you've got more light in the distance. So to do that, really, you've got this this setting here, attenuation radius, and I would probably double that, and you'll see here what difference that's going to make. When I set this to 1000, you can see that the cone is now a lot bigger. It looks a bit weird because it's in lines, but you can see here from the side, if I set this back to 500, that's a lot smaller. So I'm effectively doubling the radius area, but I also want to make this narrower because I've sort of set the radius wider at the same focal length, but I don't want to give that much visibility away. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to reduce this down to maybe 30, and then that was the outer cone angle, and then the inner cone angle I'm also going to reduce this down to maybe 18 or maybe 15. I'm not too sure, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to undo that, and I'll explain why I'm going to undo that in just a minute. So I've put this back to 44, that's back to 22, and I'm going to set this back to 500. And I'm just going to explain why. If you go back to your example map and change your player mode with this little down arrow and make sure it's in selected viewport, hit play. What we can do is, if we move the mouse off screen over here and we come over to the world outliner at the side, scroll down, and if we find our third person character, you've got this little components window here. Now there is a good chance that this is just pushed right up here and you just see this little third person character. There's actually a scroll bar there, but you can just drag this down a little bit and you can get spotlight. Now what I'm going to do is that because we've pressed play, we actually get to see like a preview of our changes. So I just want to see what effect this is going to have in the game. So if I set this attenuation now to 1000 and press enter, you can see that a lot more of my scene has just been lit up. Set it back to 500, you see that the staircase there and the back of the stairs is no longer lit up. But put 1000 again, it now is lit up a little bit. but it's also like a really wide spread, and I want to sort of contain that light just a little bit. So I'm going to set the inner core cone value to 18. Doesn't make that much of a difference. Let's try 15. Okay, that's also not much of a difference, but I think if I change it along with the outer cone, maybe to 30, that's a lot narrower now. I like that. You get a bit more of a focus on that in a distance. I'm going to just change this back to 18. Let's see what difference that made. Back to 15. I think 15 is a good one. Maybe the outer cone to 28. Okay, I like that. And let's set this to 1100. Okay, I think 1100 is actually a much brighter distance there. I quite like that. So basically what I've done now is in the game I've previewed the settings I'm going to change. Now what happens is when I press stop, them settings are actually going to revert back to what they were before I press play. So if you change loads of settings, it might be worth writing those down, but because that's only 3 numbers, I'm pretty confident I'm going to be able to remember those. So that's 1100, 15 and 28. So they're the 3 numbers here that we've changed. So if I press stop, now I go back to my character and click on Spotlight, you'll see that these are still the default values. And that's absolutely fine. So what we want to do now in the event graph of the character, we just want to say when we click, let's change these values to the ones that we've just picked. So the 1100, 15 and the 28. So what we're going to need is a reference to our spotlight. So on the left, grab your spotlight and drag it over. Now, if you remember, the first one was attenuation. So we can either get or set, but obviously we need to set. Set the attenuation, and the new radius is going to be 1100. Also, from the spotlight, we're going to want to set the inner cone angle. Let's join those up. I'm going to set the inner cone to 15. I'm just going to double click on this blue line here to create what's called a reroute node, and again that's just to make it look tidier. Tell you what I'm actually going to do. I'm actually going to put one there, one here, and then tell you what, let's just create the next one. Off the next one, we're going to go for outer. We're going to set outer cone angle, join them up. The outer cone angle was going to be reduced to 28. And again, I'm going to double click, create a reroute node, and then double click once more. And I'm going to, as you can see, that just makes that look a bit cleaner. You can see where everything's going. Great. Let's join up the first execution there. So now when we click, we're going to set this radius, the inner cone values and the outer cone values. And that should be fine. Let's just give that a quick test and let's just make sure that's what we want. So if you remember, we need to press F, change to our searchlight, and then when we click, we get this nice bright searchlight now, which is brilliant. But when I release the mouse, there's no way for that to change back. So to reset, I don't really want to have let's say I make a searchlight and I make some other things, and there's loads of different things that are based on me releasing the mouse press. I don't really want to be creating sort of loads of lines coming from down here. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually just going to make another switch. So select this switch, Control W. I'm going to pop that into there, I think, and I have that. Like that. So if I press the button and I have one of these weapon types, we're shooting these weapons, and then when I release, if I've got one of these weapons, which in my case I want a searchlight, I want to do something else. So what do I want to do? I want to essentially set these back to their originals. So let's just copy all of them, press Control and W, and I'm going to drag this down. I'm going to set this radius back to 500. I'm going to set the inner cone value back to 22. And I'm going to set the outer cone value back to 44. Okay, and then I'm going to drag all the way down here, and I'm going to just double click and create a reroute node and put that up. That, in theory, should be fine. So let's compile, hit play, and let's go to Searchlight, we click, get this nice bright light, and then when we go, we get a short one again. Okay, that seems fine to me. So now really we want to think about moving the camera. So we've got a nice bright light, let's move the camera. So let's move over to the follow camera. So in your contents folder, you want to find your follow camera. This could be in your contents here at the beginning if you followed me from the beginning. I've just taken the initiative to move it. So I've put that in third person, blueprints, and then follow camera. And that should bring you to this blueprint. Essentially, all this blueprint is a camera on a spring arm that on every tick gets the player character's location and adds a 300x sort of difference. So it actually pulls the camera back away from the character's location by 300 and then sets that. So it's always getting the character's location, applying this sort of deduction, and then setting that. So what I actually want to do is when we have the searchlight activated, we want to maybe remove this deduction. So instead of it being minus 300, we'll just have it set to the actor's location. So we're actually moving closer to the character. So one way we can do that, and obviously if I just set this from 300 to 0 immediately, it's going to look really jarring. We're just going to the camera's just going to suddenly jump and be in the distance, and I think that doesn't typically look that good. So what we can actually do is there's a brilliant node called Lerp, and what Lerp allows you to do is it allows you to blend between one value to another value. But this requires an alpha, and essentially an alpha is if let's say we've got number 0 and number 1. If I am 0, I am 100% whatever A is. So let's say A is our 300 and B is the 0. If my alpha is set to 1, for example, my output value here is going to be 300 because we're 100% A. Now, if I set my alpha to 0, we're going to be 100% B. And that's just how it works. So if we set this to 0.5, we're actually going to be 150. So you can see as this alpha value changes, it changes the blend between these two. Which, if we can smoothly change from 0 to 1 or from 1 to 0, we'll have a nice blend or a nice movement between the two. Now luckily there is something that can help us with that. There's what's called a timeline node, and I'm going to call this timeline searchlight movement. Essentially what you can do, this timeline doesn't look like much to start with, but if you double click on it, what it does, it takes you to sort of like a timeline creator. And at the top here, we've got a few different options to pick from, but the one that you probably more commonly will use is float. So what I'm going to do is just press add float, and then essentially this is like a timeline. So this timeline sets up for a length of 5 seconds. I just need 1 second. So you can see now it's shortened my available time. And this is kind of like, this is where 0 is, and then you can see we've got 1 and 2 and 3, and this is really the output value. So by holding shift and clicking, you can create points on a line. I'm going to create 2. I'm going to click on the first one, and at the top here, got a time frame and a value. So at time frame 0, so at the beginning of my timeline, I want to start at 0. And then on the second node that I've put here, I'm going to set my time to 1 because I want to be at 1 second. But I also want my value to be 1. And you can see here that now we've created this line. I just go straight up. And basically what this is saying is, over the course of 1 second, I want to change my value from 0 to 1. I'm going to go from 0 to 1 over the course of a second. So it's going to change by 0.1 value every 0.1 of a second, which is great. Now, this is just a straight line as well, so there's not really... It's just going to be a really... It's going to be smooth, but it's not going to be as smooth as it can be. So what you can also do is you can right-click on these sort of keyframes, these nodes, and you can pick Auto. And if you do this for both, you'll see that now we've got this gradual blend in and blend out. You're kind of smooth in and smooth out of your movement. And with it being a camera movement, it's not going to feel as jolty, like you're pulling the camera around really quick. You don't really want that in a game because it'll make people feel sick. Hit compile, and what you can do now is you can actually close this little tab, and you'll see now, I forgot to rename the track actually. Let's just double click that again and let's go back in. Up here you can see the track that we've created has a name. You can press rename, and we'll just put movement alpha, and then we can click. Now you can see our timeline node has now got this new float output as movement alpha. And essentially what we can do now is we can get an execution in here, and this will start to play this timeline. And this timeline will go from 0 to 1 second, and it'll change the value of this as it does that. So we can actually plug that into our alpha here. And now what will happen is it'll start from 0, which these I just need to change around, because at the moment, oh no, that's right. Sorry, that's right. 0's A and 1 is B. So as I go from 0 to 1, this is going to go from 300 to 0 and blend between the two. So then this can actually be our return value for our adjustment. So really what's going to happen now is, once we've figured out how we get this to play, this is going to update, and this is going to change our camera's location from the 300 distance behind our player that it was defaulted to 0. So it's going to give us the effect that we're actually moving closer to the camera, so the player, sorry. So it's going to give us that zoom effect. So all that's left for us to do now is to try and figure out a way of get these to play, because we want this to play and we want it to reverse when it's obviously when we don't want to have the zoom in effect. So one way we can do that is we can create some custom events and then call them from our character. So to do that, just drag off player and type in custom. Usually you can get to about cust and you get custom event, press add, and I'm just going to call this one start searchlight. Start searchlight, and then from start, no, sorry, not start, from reverse, I'm going to put custom, and I'm going to put stop. Okay, so we've got two custom events here, one for playing and one for reversing, because when we play, we're going to play to the end, and then when we're finished, we need to reverse and go back. And the other good way of, the other good thing about using this is if we play and we only keep hold of our mouse button for half a second, it'll stop here, and then when we let go, it will reverse from here. Because you'll notice there are some other options, play from start and reverse from end. If we was to play from the start and then let go of the mouse, it's then going to reverse from the end. So it's going to jump to the value 1 and then go back. And that'll also give you some usual effects with camera. So play in reverse, and we've got start and stop searchlight. Once this is called, this should then nice smoothly transition this. We don't have to worry about the rest of it because this is being updated on tick anyway. So in terms of the updating of this, that's already sorted. We just need to make sure we compile and save, and then let's head back to our third person character. So now what we need to do is we need to get access to the follow cameras events. So one way we can do that is get actor of class. Oh, what for them? Oh, of class. So not get all actors of a class, because you should only have one follow camera, but get actor of class. That's just a single case then. From your drop down menu, you want to select your follow camera. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to plug this reroute node into there. I'll tell you what, I'm actually going to remove that reroute. And I'm going to drag this back up to the top. Right. There, like that. I'm probably going to move all this down in just a minute. And then as a return value, we want to start searchlight. What this is going to do is basically this node is going to get the follow camera as a whole, like the whole blueprint. And then within its return value, essentially you're saying, as the follow camera, can you do these tasks? And one of them tasks we've told it is searchlight. Let's tag that into that. So now when we click, we should get a movement of the camera. But obviously we need to do the opposite of that too. So dragging off this return value, we're going to do stop searchlight. Connect this in. Reroute node. Just make this. I'm going to forward just, and select all of that. You can do this however you want. I just like to a bit. I'm going to press C on the keyboard, and I'm just going to put searchlight. And yep, let's give this a color. So select your comment, and then under comment color, I'm just going to stick to. That's fine. So let's hit compile. Let's save, and let's give it a test. So firing your weapon doesn't do anything. So if I press F and switch to my searchlight, I'm going to click. Now our camera moves forward and just gives a bit more visibility of what's in front of us, and then moves back once we release. So now what we can do is we can navigate through the game, run past these people because we're not going to shoot them at this instance, but when we get to the end of the level, just to be a bit nosy, we can click and we can see, okay, there's definitely a guy there. He looks like he's going to be difficult. So when we drop down here and progress into the next level, if we get the option to upgrade our weapons, we know we're going to need extra power to get through that guy. That's pretty much it. Just before I start to wrap up, one quick additional thing there. What you could also do, which if you're interested, pop a comment down below, but we could also set up the camera to follow the mouse when we're using the searchlight. But what I would personally do is set up like a limit, so it can follow the camera. It can follow the mouse, but only to a maximum distance away from the character, so that way that you can't just fly around the map with your mouse. I like this because it just moves you ahead in the game, just enough to give you a bit of insight, but not too much. And obviously we're only changing the X here, but you can change all of these values. You can have it follow the mouse. That does include, you need to include using the player controller there a little bit just to get that sort of to work correctly. If you want more details about that, pop a comment down below. I'll probably make a video about it. or you can jump over into the Discord and I'll try and explain it, or I'll send you over some screenshots or something. But with that being said, thank you for watching. If this was any use to you, please consider subscribing, give me a like, comment down below what you think of it. There's a few other social links down below, but not to dwell on it too much.